first thing. The number one thing you can do starting tomorrow to give yourself a big advantage over other kids come tryouts. I'll say it one more time. The number one thing you can do starting tomorrow to give yourself a big advantage over everybody else in the tryouts as you get going here. And Matt, I'll keep the slide up here for another 15 seconds or so. As you and I and Rudy were discussing, what do we want to teach tonight? What do we want to communicate? This was actually the first topic that you brought up. Like you mentioned, going through tryouts as a player, as a coach, 3-time coach of the year. Can you speak to this one first, and let's just get into it?
For sure. You know, I think how when I was a player, so often I would always consider the on-court pieces of how to stand out. But athletes are on call. What I want to share with you is there's actually a better way and a quicker way. You might have tryouts just around the corner, maybe they're in a couple of weeks or a month or so. But the number one thing that you can do to stand out in that program with that coach, and I would say especially for those of you who are either number one, trying to make a new team for the first time. Maybe you've never made the varsity team. Maybe you didn't make the JV team last year. Maybe you live somewhere new where it's a new program, or maybe you had a new coach come in from somewhere else. The best thing that you can do tomorrow is to go in the office of your coach, set up a time to meet, and just find out what they value. When coaches are in tryouts, so often players are just trying to do everything, but every coach values different things. And so the number one thing you can do as a player is find out what your coach values now, and so that you're ready to do those things once you get into the tryout.
Yeah, that's good. Rudy, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think in my mind, when Matt's talking there, I think it'll play into a theme that you'll see over the course of this evening. Be front of mind and be hard to forget. Like, be front of mind, just constantly be on their mind, like somebody that just pops up. Like before the tryouts, if you go in there, you're probably going to be the only player. If you do what Matt just said, you're probably going to be the only player, one or maybe two that do that. So there might be 50 people at tryouts, but you're going to be one of two that stood out and already did something. So you're going to be front of mind, and it's hard to forget somebody that stands out in that way. So you're giving yourself a chance because, I mean, Matt, we've talked about that before. You have so many things going on at the beginning of the season as a coach, right? That it's just, if there's somebody that just stands out, you're like, oh, I remember that kid. That's James. James came in my office last week. Like that stood out. And so now when you see James, you recognize James, you might actually go seek James out because there's some level of comfort there because they've inserted themselves into your mind. So just something to think about.
This is probably there's probably a range of players here, obviously, with also different size schools, right? Some players might go into tryouts with 200 or 300 players. Others might go in with 20 players. A player may have been on the team last year. We might have people on this call with a player who didn't make the team last year. So maybe we can get even more specific. Let me ask a specific question to you, Matt. You're a coach, and a kid on this call right now is like, I'm a bit afraid. I didn't make the team last year. So let's tackle that for a moment. What do I say? I go to his office. That's because in theory, it sounds really good. In practicality, a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid walking into an adult's office and asking them, what do I need to do to make the team, is very scary. Can you give the coach's perspective and maybe offer some language that we can give players?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally get it. I can just think of myself as a sophomore in high school, having to go have that conversation if I didn't know the coach or if I had not made the team the year before. The first thing I say is this, players, don't listen to yourself when you get nervous. You got to talk to yourself, and you have to prepare yourself. Like, this is not a conversation that you just want to go in and just start talking without having pre-thought about it.
Yeah.
I would even recommend maybe there's someone you trust, whether it's a parent, another person at your school, just an older individual in your life. Like, practice that conversation first. Allow your anxiety to subside a little bit. The second thing I would say is this: coaches are not as scary as they sometimes seem. And really, I mean, the coaches that I know, especially at the high school level, they're not doing it for the paycheck. They do it because they love the game of basketball. And so as a player, when you reach out, and maybe the best thing to do is to send an email. If you don't have their cell phone number, send them a text, find out some way to get in touch with them. But just let them know, hey, coach, I really love basketball. You and I both know I didn't make the team last year, and that's something that I'm wanting to change. I would just love to come into your office and hear from you what I can do to give myself a better chance to make the team this year when tryouts come around. I think that's a great way to start a conversation before you're ever even in the office with the coach.
Yeah.
So number one, practice. Think about what you want to say, role play it out a little bit so your anxiety doesn't have the best chance to get the best of you. And then just number two, be really open and honest about it. Coaches are going to appreciate that. They love the game of basketball. That's why they're coaching it. And so they love to talk about it. And just go, and you never know what might happen coming out of that conversation.
Yeah, beautiful. Rudy, what would you add there, if anything?
I just have a question for Matt. Because I've never been a high school coach myself. I've coached AAU for 4 years, coached in college, but this is just a different kind of medium. So you're definitely the expert in the room here. Would it make a difference? Would it add any value if a player came in and actually had some things like, here were some deficiencies that I saw in myself last year? Like, I know one of the things that I wasn't good at was X, Y, and Z. I know I was really weak with my non-dominant hand. I couldn't really make a layup last year with my left hand. So I worked on that a lot this offseason. Is there anything else that you saw other than this or these two things? Like, is having that like type of self-reflection and self-awareness, does that make much of a difference for you as a coach? Or is that kind of just like an add-on that doesn't really add that much value?
Really, that's a really good thought. I would say for me, and I think that this is probably apply to most coaches out there, especially the ones that I've interacted with over the last 20 years. It really depends about the relationship you've had before that conversation. If you go to, like in Texas, if you go to a large 6A school, the coach might not even know who you are if you didn't make it the first time around. Yeah. If you go to a smaller school where maybe that coach is also your science teacher or your math teacher, you're gonna have a deeper relationship before the conversation ever starts. But I think either way, going in ready to share what you've been working on. Coaches love hard work. And actually, we were talking about this weekend at the shooting college with the athletes that we had there in Dallas, and the fact that coaches are always really working hard to protect their culture, and they want great culture fits. And I don't know a coach that doesn't value hard work as a part of their culture. So if you even go in and share it, hey, coach, again, didn't get a chance to make the team last year, and let's assume that we don't have, you don't know the coach very well, but these are some things I've been working on to level up my game, right? Because right now you're saying, coach, hey, I recognize these are some of my deficiencies and I'm working on it. But hey, as we're getting closer to tryouts, I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing, right? Is there something else? Regardless if the coach knows your game or not, they're able to share with you as a player some thoughts they have of what they want to see once tryouts roll around. But yeah. I would always say going in with extra information is never a bad thing.
Beautiful. And I just wrote this down listening to both of y'all talk. A very specific question. I'm trying to summarize some of what you said, Matt. One thing you can walk in and do is ask, what skills, coach, right? It's like, Coach Matt, what's a skill or set of skills that you value most that you're looking for during tryouts? What's a set of skills or a skill that you value most, that you're looking for on the team, right? That you're going to be watching for in tryouts. And that's also going to put a coach in the spot. They have to now think, because if you're asking like, well, this person's intelligent, they care, and then go do that thing during tryouts, right? And so that's that. And Rudy, let me come to you for this last piece here. We're going to go about 90 seconds more on this before we shift to another topic, which is actually right in line with what we're talking about. I just saw this come up. Is it better for? Let me see if I can find. Is it better for would a coach just like a parent coming to them and asking, or is it better for the player to do it? So Rudy, I'm gonna give you 45 seconds on it, and Matt, I'm gonna give you 30 to add on if anything. Go ahead.
Some coaches like Matt love dealing with parents, and they actually have really good relationships with parents. Many high school coaches, because being overwhelmed or because of poor interactions in the past, have certain policies or get very standoffish with parents, especially that early in the season, especially if they've already cut your player before. So I would definitely suggest this as an opportunity for players to go and have that conversation.
Yeah.
One, they're going to have to be the one that has the relationship with the coach. They have to play for them. And two, a parent going in my opinion, could actually hurt more than it helps. If a coach feels like there's a helicopter parent that's there before we even get started in tryouts, that could actually be a detriment. So I would avoid having the parent go in and have that conversation pre-tryouts.
Matt, 30 seconds. What would you add?
Yeah, Rudy, I agree 100%. I'd actually say in any situation, if it's for myself, as much as I love the parents of my program, there's a new athlete at school and I hear from their parents first, I'm going to wonder how bad does the athlete actually want it themselves. And I'm a parent too. I've got 4 kids and I get it. Parents, we love our kids. We care about our kids. It's got to be the player. The player has to talk to the coach. Same thing at the college level. I know we've got multiple athletes watching now and watch the recording that want to, impress college coaches. If parents reach out first, those college coaches are going to strike your name off the list faster than anything else. And so the players, if it matters to you, it's got to really matter to you by your actions and not just your words.
Beautiful. Well said to both of y'all. Appreciate you sharing those things. And I think we're going to hear a theme throughout this evening is, this is actually going to be one of our things we talk about, is controlling the things that you can control. You're not going to control scoring 30, 40, 50 points in a tryout. You have 3 days to stand out. So one of the ways to stand out is controlling this thing, which is going and learning what your coach cares about and then doing that thing once you get into tryouts.